All right, Kevin McCloskey with O-Line Sports. I'm doing something I honestly never thought I'd do again, but it's one of those things where life throws you a twist. Sometimes we're unpleasant, but in this case, they're very pleasant. Tonight, my guest is Dominiks Nitsch. And first of all, let me say, Western Alamance family, he didn't play football, so I know most of you are football fans, but I still urge you to watch. And hey, if you know anything about Western Alamance, if you're a Southwest Onslow fan or whatever, still listen to this. This is a very, very interesting story. We're going to explore in a Where Are They Now segment Dominik's path to life and what's happened to him since he left Western Alamance. Just to set the situation and how things happened. Dominik came to Western back in 2009, 2010.
Correct.
He was a foreign exchange student from Germany, from Cologne, Germany, and he was a junior at that time. And he became friends with our daughter, Kaylee, and that's how we got to know Dom. A few days ago, last week or a couple weeks ago, actually, Dom reached out to me. He was going to be in the United States for a certain event. We'll talk about that in a minute. And said, hey, I've never been to the beach in North Carolina. Can we come down and visit, or can I come down and visit? I said, absolutely. One thing led to another, and here we are. So, Dom, thank you, first of all, for being here. We're glad you're here. Set the stage, Dom. Talk about your time at Western Alamance. How did you get there? And then you were a lacrosse player. How did that all happen?
So, first of all, Kevin, thanks for having me. It's really been a pleasure to have been here. I got to Western mostly by accident. You know, I started an exchange program in Germany, and well, since we don't really know that much about the States when you're 15, 16, growing up in Germany, you don't really get to pick where you go. So I was assigned to North Carolina, and first of all, I had to look up on the map because I thought it was next to North Dakota, and I realized, well, it's actually not that bad. And I was taken in by a really kind host family, the Menses, and yeah, ended up spending a year at Western High, and the first couple of weeks for me were super interesting. I'm a city kid, you know, the smallest city I've ever lived in at that point was 1 million people. So coming into Western, coming to the country, coming to, well, have tractor day at school was a really interesting experience for me.
Tractor day at Western Alamance? You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, so it was really insightful for me to get there, you know, coming from my bubble in Germany, being thrown out in the cold water in a North Carolina high school where everybody speaks a fairly strong accent if you learn British English in school. And yeah, it took me a couple of weeks to get used to it, but eventually I got used to it, and every time I come back to the States, I love it.
So I alluded to this earlier about Dom came to the United States for a special event, and that event was lacrosse, and I will elaborate on that in a minute. But so Dom didn't play football, he played lacrosse at Western Alamance. That's a kind of interesting story too, Dom. How did you get into lacrosse? You're only here for 1 year. How did that happen?
So I was looking into playing tennis because that's what I had played before. And we were sitting at lunch. I think it was around January. And a friend of mine walked up to me and said, like, hey, have you ever considered playing lacrosse instead of tennis? And I said, I have no idea what lacrosse is. And he said, well, you know, it's a sport where you get to beat up people with a metal stick. And I thought, no, that sounds fantastic. And I didn't get a chance to play football at Western because I came in fairly late in the school year. So I missed most of prep. I also didn't know the rules, and I was also very skinny, so not good prerequisites for football, but I knew I wanted to do a contact sport in the States. So when he told me, oh yeah, you get to beat up people, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I did, what I want to do. So I did the 4 weeks of lacrosse conditioning without even knowing what a lacrosse stick looks like, and started playing, had a lot of fun of it, and when I came back to Germany, I looked for a team in my hometown of Cologne, found one, realized a high school friend of mine actually also played in that one, and well, I just never stopped playing.
Yeah. Well, here's where the Where Are They Now part comes into it, because Dom's being modest. The reason why he was here in the United States is he was representing Germany. He's now on the German national team, and they're in the top 8 teams in the world playing in the World Games in Birmingham, Alabama. And so that was quite an experience for him. So Dom went from never having even know what lacrosse is as a junior at Western Alamance to now being one of the top 8 teams in the world. Tell a little bit about your experience in Birmingham. I know it was hot to play lacrosse in Birmingham, Alabama in July. But what was that like playing against other countries?
It completely reframed for me what really good lacrosse means. The first game we had was against Team USA, so we get to play against the best in the world. And I just never saw players on that level, you know, they're just better in every single dimension, you know, they're more athletic, they have better stick skills, they have better lacrosse IQ, but it also showed me what's possible. And playing on an international stage for me was the first time I really felt like a professional, you know, everything was taken care of, and we just had to focus on the game and to play. And honestly, I would love to go back in 2025 and play again in the World Games, because it's not just lacrosse, it's also a lot of other sports. And before that, I had no idea that fistball or drone racing or canoe polo were sports. But I got to watch all that. And it was really, I think it was a glimpse of what the Olympics might feel like.
To talk about the Olympics, as one of the top 8 teams in the world, it's not currently an Olympic sport, but there's a good possibility in, 8 years that lacrosse could be an Olympic sport. So you could be looking at a future Olympian for the country of Germany here with Dom.
We'll see about that. I'll be 34 when lacrosse might be in the Olympics. But I think in general, people tend to underestimate the infrastructure for lacrosse outside of North America. Because here, people play it in high school, there's youth teams, people can play it in college. In Germany, it's not like that. In Germany, there's 5,000 players in total who play lacrosse. Wow. So we have to pay for everything ourselves. Jerseys, helmets, gloves, flights, accommodation. We had to pay about 3,000 euros for everything in total just to go to Birmingham. And for lacrosse to become Olympic, it would on one hand mean more funding for youth teams, but it would also encourage more elite players to actually play the sport at a high level, because they get funding and don't have to pay for everything themselves anymore.
Yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about sports and lacrosse, but we're talking about where are they now too. Let's talk. You've lived a very colorful life since you've gone back to Europe. I think he was telling me yesterday you've been to 33 countries, multiple continents. He started 2 or 3 of his own businesses, an entrepreneur, a little bit of everything, Dom. So give a quick recap of what your life's been like outside of lacrosse.
So after coming back from Western, I finished high school, studied in Munich business and computer science, and then straight off university founded my own company, because I believe that the way we learn languages is wrong in school, and we need to focus more on speaking. So we built a company around this, and we used the language course that we developed to bring unemployed nurses from Italy to Germany and to teach them German. So I did that for about 4 years, then moved to Berlin to attempted to found a company in the personal training space, to develop an AI that makes training plans for you and also gives you real-time feedback on the exercises that you do. And now I'm currently running the international business for a company that's building software for schools, essentially information systems, communication systems.
One thing you told me yesterday about the nursing practice, where you're bringing nurses from Italy to Germany, that happened as COVID was coming into effect. You were bringing in some ICU nurses.
Yes.
So they really made a difference in the ability to treat COVID patients during the heat of the pandemic. So anyway, we'll wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed this. This was great for us to get to see Dom again, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.